Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 2v2 on Medean Jungle Mines. And our first player is Xphial, playing as a Dark Angels Force Commander. This one is recolored, but he's still got those toothbrushes on his helmet, so you know it's still Dark Angels. This Force Commander is a tanky melee hero. He runs around, he can tie things up with his chainsword. Later on, if you give him an upgraded weapon, he can do a lot of damage. Very good at countering walkers with his power fist, and he's also very good at countering melee in general, but especially with his thunder hammer. Next up, we've got SuperHooper, playing as the Orc Kommando Nob, a relatively sneaky and subtle orc by orc standards. He can infiltrate, make himself invisible. He has a variety of guns, bombs, and a knife. His starting Twinling Shooter is incredibly powerful, and he's definitely got some pretty powerful upgrades as well. On the other team, first of all, we've got Fusterclub. This is actually DJ Raffa. He is playing as the Grey Knight Rocap. This is another tanky melee hero. Not so good for countering melee because he doesn't have any kind of knockback or disruption on demand in Tier 1, or actually in general. But he's still very tanky. He can walk right through cover, he wears Terminator armor, and he's got a lot of health. And then finally, we've got Maestro Cretella playing as the Eldar Warlock. This is a Eldar melee hero. Depending on what path of war you want to choose, you can make him an offensive spellcaster, a support spellcaster, or a melee tank. We've got a bit of a short game here, but, you know, I'm going to say it's a short but sweet game. Anyway, Howling Banshees right here. I apparently came to help Raffa out a little bit. We might be at a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't have as many squads in the early engagements. SuperHooper and Xphial taking an early lead in VPs, but Raffa being very oppressive with his Brother Captain. Brother Captain has the Blessed Aegis, which increases his health as well as his health regeneration. I noticed that when Raffa's been playing the Brother Captain, he's been really getting a lot of mileage just out of the Brother Captain tanking and running around and tying things up, and getting the Blessed Aegis might have something to do with that. Just giving him an extra 200 health as well as that increased health regeneration. Probably just can stay out on the field for a really long time. Now I'm wary of this Orc Generator Bash, so I'm moving my Shuriken Cannon over here. I would like to suppress all these Orcs before they kill another Generator. Orcs are so threatening when it comes to bashing Generators because they can bash so quickly. If you just let them bash for even a little while, they'll get like 1 or 2 Generators. Meanwhile, I've got my Dire Avengers over here trying to return the favor. Single Dire Avenger squad doing the job much more slowly, however. All of the Dire Avenger models are firing. I managed to get 1 generator, so I actually managed to equalize the losses. Although since I only have 1 Dire Avenger, I'm definitely not going to bash as efficiently. And here I see that the Force Commander's coming, as well as these other things, so I just fleet of foot out of there with the Dire Avengers. That allows them to stay out on the field. I'm setting up my Shuriken Cannon. However, I think I'm a little overwhelmed because there are 2 here, both Raffa and... not Raffa, both Xphial and SuperHooper are here. I imagine we might see a stun bomb going in right there, and that's a terrible situation for me. Terrible because it gets both the Shuriken Cannon as well as the Dire Avengers stunned. Now I have Banshees going in, trying to tie things up, but it's not good enough. The Guardian Weapon Team does eventually get... the attacks get in range of the Guardian Weapon Team, so I can't set up, can't fight. Relying a lot on the Warlock right now, who has already upgraded to the Champion's Robe to give himself an energy shield. If I'm going for the Jedi upgrade, the Jedi build, I generally prefer to get the Champion's Robe first, and then the Merciless Witchblade, although sometimes I do it the other way around. But I really wanted to get the Champion's Robe as soon as possible, just because of how much more staying power it's going to give my Warlock. With only the Merciless Witchblade against double Shooter Boys, especially now that they're fully upgraded, have both their big shooters as well as their Nob. If I only have the Merciless Witchblade, but I don't have the energy shield, or I believe it's the psychic shield, I'm going to get forced off very quickly, and the Warlock's not going to be able to do much. At least if he has that energy shield, he gets to stay in there for a pretty long time. This Guardian Weapon Team in a little bit of trouble, and it's going to have to retreat out of there. Luckily, I have another one behind it, so I've got a double Guardian Weapon Team play, and this is something it's a pretty known Eldar play, and I've been trying it lately, and I've actually been kind of liking it. Especially, I don't think my positioning on my setup teams tends to not be so great, and I always get extremely frustrated whenever my setup team gets flanked or tied up by something I didn't see, or if I'm just so bad with my positioning that a melee unit ends up just walking straight up to it because I haven't set it up yet. We do have some Storm Boys out for SuperHooper, using that as a counter to the Guardian weapons teams. Gonna definitely help out the Orcs a lot. Meanwhile, over here, Raffa's been doing this. He's really been trying to fast tech with Grey Knights. He did not get any upgrades on the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. He's got an Incinerator on the Strike Squad, and he's only got the Blessed Aegis, so he really did not spend much at all in Tier 1. Meanwhile, attempted grenade there on a Suppressed Shooter Boy, but he just retreats out of there. But Raffa, he's doing pretty well to make this build work, because he's really buying very, very little. I can't think of a much cheaper build for any other race. This really isn't buying much, and he's going straight to Tier 2. And he did this in another game too, where he went straight to Tier 2, and then he made a priority of getting the combination of the Vindicare Assassin and Purifiers. It's an interesting combination. I wonder what the rationale is. We've got a Guardian weapon team as well as the Strike Squad set up here, but they're both probably just going to get jumped by the Storm Boys. That's exactly what happened, and they're probably just going to have to retreat out of there. Guardian weapon team in a little bit of trouble. Now I have the Merciless Witchblade on my Warlock, and he will be very, very effective at countering the Storm Boys with this build. Already got a sync kill on one of the Storm Boys. And here we do have that Vindicare Assassin, only 325 hit points to start out, and you need to upgrade to the Extended Operations to give it another 125 hit points. Even with that much hit points, it's still the lowest health for any single entity in the game. So it's... the Vindicare Assassin is definitely a little fragile, and you have to be very careful with him. In particular, really need to be careful about letting him get jumped. Anyway, it looks like I might have a full bash or close to a full bash happening right here. SuperHooper's about to answer back. I've got the Warlock just bashing the generator, so the Guardian weapon team might just get out of there. Really don't want to leave the Guardian weapon team in very long against Storm Boys, because Storm Boys do a ridiculous amount of damage. They do 30 DPS power melee per model, and that's on a 5-model squad, so that's 150 DPS power melee. It's very, very powerful. Especially considering they are a jump unit. If they were, their main weakness is that they're terrible at killing on retreat for some reason. If they were good at killing on retreat, they would probably be a little too good. Anyway, we've got that plasma damage area of effect ability over time from the Purifiers. So this is like Raffa's build right now. He's been using it a lot, going the Vindicare Assassin and then the Purifiers. I'm sure the Vindicare Assassin, it means very early on he's going to have AV, since the Vindicare Assassin can switch between two different types of rounds. He's got an AV round as well as just an anti-infantry round. The AV round actually does do damage to infantry, but the anti-infantry round does more. The AV rounds are called Turbo Penetrator rounds, and I'm embarrassed to say that I don't remember the name of the non-AV round. Although I believe the name of the rifle is the Exodus rifle. Anyway, we've got some engagement right there. Special attack from the Warlock. Unfortunately, the Warlock does not yet have the Heart of Darkness, and I managed to get... Dire Avengers took a shotgun blast from the Kommando Nob, but they did not lose a single model, which is pretty lucky. The VPs have already ticked down quite a bit. We've got 299 to 362. And we have a Strike Squad that even has their Justicar. Now, the Strike Squad, from their Justicar, they get, I believe, the Energy Burst ability. Drains energy from a targeted squad, and in this version, it also does a little bit of a snare, which is, I think, very, very useful. And that was something that for a while, I didn't know about. And then when I got hit by it, I was like, whoa, what is this? Anyway, this should be a finish off the bash, especially with the Incinerator on this Strike Squad. And Raffa makes some very interesting choices. He's been playing Grey Knights recently, and he's been playing Grey Knights differently from how I've seen it played by other players. So he favors this short tech build, gets a Vindicare Assassin early, and then Purifiers immediately after. And of course he's got his Brother Captain mainly set up for tank mode. Terrible positioning right here, unfortunately. Ooh, and that's really, really bad. Now I engaged there thinking I would be okay, and let's see, what did I lose my Howling Banshees? Howling Banshees are not dead. Yes, they are dead. Unfortunately, the Kommando Nob special shooter, that shotgun blast at close range, really turned the tide of that engagement in SuperHooper's favor. And I was probably going into that engagement at a slight disadvantage, and I kind of committed to it anyway, but that shotgun blast really, really turned it majorly in his favor. Because then I had both my Dire Avengers and my Banshees. They were disrupted, as well as having very, very little health. They had like 20% health. Meanwhile, Force Commander being tanky, he's got the Storm Shield, so he's going to... He does get a passive damage resistance from that, as well as the Defend ability, which decreases the damage of pretty much just any units around the Force Commander in an area. This is kind of bad. I made a Warp Spider purchase, I think maybe in part just because I saw, well, probably a number of reasons. Warp Spiders I find are pretty good against Orcs, and so I find it really good to just get Warp Spiders against Orcs. Don't even think too hard about it. Just get Warp Spiders against Orcs, and it works out really well. Also have this Dreadnought to deal with, and I want that snare. Anyway, Raffa's now moving in kind of by himself. I have my non-Bright Lance Guardian weapon team back in here, trying to get the Bright Lance Guardian weapon team out. And this Vindicare Assassin now in a little bit of trouble, got knocked down by a special attack. That's a very dangerous situation for him. Hopefully he's got melee resist. And here we go with Storm Boys completely ruining my counterattack. Most of my stuff is retreating out of there. So Raffa and I actually have a bit of a VP lead, but it looks like SuperHooper and Xphial, they now have the triple cap. So Raffa's Brother Captain really set up for tank mode, and I mean, we've definitely seen different Brother Captain builds. Going for the Blessed Aegis is going to make the Brother Captain a lot more tanky. The main disadvantage to that is that you're foregoing the potential abilities that you could get from the Brother Captain's other warriors. Now this is really, really annoying. The SuperHooper is being very, very oppressive with this infiltrated Kommando Nob just staying by this point. And that makes it very, very difficult for me to capture our natural VP, in part because he'll just stay here and he'll infiltrate when something gets close by and just defend the point. And it's actually very, very difficult for any of my units to deal with the Kommando Nob. One-to-one, most of them will probably not beat him, so I would probably have to commit more than one unit to deal with the Kommando Nob. Vindicare Assassin gets jumped again. Now, if we see over here, I have my Warlock on the point, but he's just getting knocked over, although he hasn't lost the cap yet. Meanwhile, back over here, Bomber Boy's going in. That Bomber Boy is proving to be very, very powerful, since it's doing area of effect damage. And now I'm committing more than one unit. I have the Dire Avengers coming over here, but they're probably going to get hit by a shotgun blast or some grenades, or we're going to have a flank from double Shooter Boys. And my Dire Avengers just can't stay in against that, and I'm having trouble getting my natural VP. We don't even have the middle. Raffa actually switched out the Incinerator on his strike squad for a Psy Cannon so that he can do some AV damage. Unfortunately, it's only a single Psy Cannon on this entire strike squad, so it's really not a whole lot of damage. Purifiers, meanwhile, they've got some heavy melee on that Justicar, but they really have to be careful about the splash damage that they'll take from the Dreadnought. So they're doing some damage, but they'll just have to be really careful. If the Dreadnought actually turns to engage, which it's doing now, it might even win, especially if we can get some support for it. Raffa just ends up having the Purifiers get out of there before losing any models. Vindicare Assassin is unfortunately very out of position and now in a huge amount of trouble. Those Assault Space Marines really seem to get a lot of special attacks on the Vindicare Assassin. Meanwhile, I've actually got a Wraith Lord out on the field. I wonder why I got that. But anyway, I've got Dire Avengers, again, trying to decap our point. And, of course, we got more of SuperHooper using that infiltrating Kommando Nob. I don't have a Ranger, so I can't even detect the Kommando Nob. And even if I had a Ranger, I need, like, multiple units in order to be able to deal with the Kommando Nob. I don't really have any one unit that can just fight him off by itself. Anyway, Purifiers, I think, are chasing down this Dreadnought. And I've also got a Wraithlord with a Bright Lance, and I don't really see the Dreadnought, so that's why I'm not really going after it. I'm also prioritizing getting captures because we're actually in a lot of trouble as far as just our VPs at the moment. Warp Spiders teleporting around, but they're teleporting into cover, but now they really need to get out of there or they will get wiped. Another Bomber Boys, and of course, whenever he uses that Bomber Boys, that unsets up the Guardian Weapon team, which is just part of what really works out for that in engagements. SuperHooper, however, does not have a whole lot of AV, so at least for now, my Wraithlord is going to be pretty helpful. Dire Avengers going for a cap again. I've at least managed to stall out the capture, and it also helps that Raffa managed to get a decap and is capping their natural VP. Bright Lance is moving in, or I don't know where it's moving in, but anyway, the Warlock, once in melee, he would certainly win over the Kommando Nob, but it's sometimes hard for him to get into melee, and often the Kommando Nob will just infiltrate and then leave. But at least here, the Warlock, just with all those war gears, is definitely going to be winning over the Storm Boys. As much damage as they do, he can just tank so much. I can always use Heart of Darkness to restore his health. And Storm Boys with only 60 melee skill, eventually they will get hit by a special attack from the Merciless Witchblade, which is absolutely devastating. I imagine soon we'll see these Stern Guards switch to Vengeance rounds. Looks like they finally have, but the Land Raider Crusader is still going to be pretty oppressive. We might also have the Purifiers come to tie up something, although the attacks left. Anyway, over here, I'm going to bash generators apparently with the combination of my Bright Lance and my Wraithlord while the rest of my things engage. It might actually work out better if I now sent my Wraithlord to engage. But I also need to move in the Warp Spiders as well as my Bright Lance. Here is the Warlock right here. Warp Spiders, unfortunately, teleport is on cooldown, so they cannot teleport away from those Storm Boys, and they end up having to leave a little prematurely. It would probably help if I had my Wraithlord engaged, but there is also a lot of AV down here now between a Bright Lance Luda, a Beamy Luda, as well as a rocket launcher on this Kommando Nob. Meanwhile, down here, looks like Raffa's just bashing with the Land Raider Crusader. He likes that Land Raider Crusader, and we actually have a triple cap now when we were really on the back foot with SuperHooper making it almost impossible for me to capture my natural VP. So the blue team now moving into the middle, but we've got a triple cap. And I actually think Raffa might want to start moving around this Land Raider Crusader. He's prioritizing bashing this generator. After he does that, I think he should come around to the middle because all of the blue team is massing up right there. Meanwhile, Storm Boys, look at how much trouble they got into. Can I finish them off? One hit point, and they just barely managed to get out of there. Unfortunately, I did not have a Shuriken Cannon on this Wraithlord, so I was only shooting with the little pea shooter on its side, which really just, unfortunately, does not do that much damage. Anyway, now I'm in a huge amount of trouble because the Assault Marines are going to use basically that's a done Wraithlord. Flesh over Steel and Melt-A-Bomb, and now we've also got the Kommando Nob saying what he has to say. So Wraithlord down, nothing I can do about that. And it looks like some things were wiped out. I lost my Wraithlord. I even lost my Warp Spiders. So now I don't even have much. And the VPs are pretty close. And we're going to... Luckily, well, I was going to say I'm going to get the Kommando Nob off the point, but he does end up just walking away. Special attack actually prevents right in me crosshairs from working. And now I'm actually managing to actually kind of hold at the natural VP. We might see right in me crosshairs again. There is an Autarch, however, right on the Stern Guard veterans, so that's definitely going to get them the hell out of there. And it even scares off the Kommando Nob, apparently. I think he stunned... The problem was he did a stun bomb, and he stunned both himself as well as my Warlock. So now we've actually got a double... Well, we've got a double cap, about to get a triple cap. Yes, we have a triple cap, but we've got the Assault Marines right here, decapping their natural... Assault Cannon Dreadnought moving in. I don't have much left. I've got an Autarch. getting an Executioner Spear. This Land Raider Crusader now in a bit of trouble, although the Nobs aren't actually prioritizing the Land Raider Crusader because they're prioritizing the capture point. There's not a whole lot of time left, so yeah, they got to go for the capture point. Warlock, I'm not sure where he's going. He might just be in retreat and don't even notice it. But the Nobs do finally get detected by these Purifiers. Purifiers actually doing well against the Nobs, in part because the Nobs are not fighting back. And the VPs are even out at 2 to 36. Oh man, we need these Purifiers on the point right here. It's 2 to 36, 2 for Xphial and SuperHooper. Man, he should have gotten those on the point. We've also got a decapping Stormboy squad over here. Bright Lance is taking shots on that Dreadnought. Dreadnought is actually YOLOing it. I don't think it's going to make it out here alive. It's actually a 1-0 cap for the blue team. We're getting back on the middle VP. The Dreadnought should go down, but here is an orbital bombardment. And I can't even get those Stormboys off the point fast enough. Now I'm going to have the... Well, let's look over here. My Bright Lance goes down, I think. A lot of things dying. We even got Stern Guard veterans going down. And I try to have Dire Avengers capture the point. I don't know if I stop capturing, but either way, that ends up being the win in favor of Xphial and SuperHooper. So close. Man. And a short game, I think in part because there were a lot of those triple caps, and then VPs get very, very accelerated on triple caps. But nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.